For decades, treating the deadliest disease on Earth looked like this. When it came to cardiovascular health, the medical community relied heavily on reactive intervention. The default model was to wait for the cardiovascular system to physically fail, then manage the resulting wreckage with an endless supply of daily medications. Today, top cardiological institutions like the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology are moving away from that model. They prioritize preventing the disease entirely through lifestyle changes before relying on a prescription pad. The American Heart Association defines this approach through a framework called Life's Essential 8, which functions as a precise, closed-loop biological equation. Surviving cardiovascular disease requires balancing this equation. 4 strict clinical outputs, which are entirely governed by 4 daily behavioral inputs. Let's start with the outputs. These are the 4 rigid, measurable numbers doctors use to calculate your future cardiovascular risk. First is blood pressure. When it climbs above 120/80 millimeters of mercury, the excess force physically strains the body's vascular plumbing, increasing the risk of a rupture or blockage. Next is blood lipids. This animated chart shows how modern cardiology views cholesterol. We no longer just look at the total. We take the total, remove the HDL, the good cholesterol, and whatever non-HDL remains is your true atherogenic risk. Third is your blood sugar, measured as HbA1c. Chronically high glucose levels act like microscopic shards of glass, constantly scraping and scarring the smooth inner linings of your blood vessels over time. Finally, body weight. Maintaining a BMI over 25 forces the heart to work harder with every single beat, increasing the metabolic load on the entire system. You cannot lower these 4 numbers through sheer willpower. They are the unavoidable biological results of how you live every day. To change them, you have to change the inputs. Those inputs are the specific, controllable daily behaviors that biologically dictate your clinical outputs. The first 2 are diet and physical activity. Adults need at least 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise a week, paired with eating patterns like the DASH or Mediterranean diets. Together, these directly optimize your insulin sensitivity and manage your weight. The third input is nicotine exposure. The American Heart Association has expanded this metric beyond traditional smoking to explicitly include secondhand smoke and inhaled delivery systems like e-cigarettes and vapes. Inhaled nicotine remains the leading cause of preventable death in the U.S. It drives exactly 1/3 of all cardiovascular disease fatalities. Diet, exercise, and avoiding nicotine form a strong defense. But for years, scientists realized these 3 variables were mathematically insufficient. The prevention equation was missing a final variable. In 2022, after over a decade of continuous research, the medical community officially updated their guidelines. Sleep was added as the 8th pillar of cardiovascular health. Sleep functions as the body's master regulator. Getting the required 7 to 9 hours a night triggers essential cellular repair and balances the hormones that control stress, appetite, and blood sugar. Look at this graph charting cardiovascular mortality risk against hours of sleep. It forms a distinct U-shape. Chronic deprivation under 7 hours and oversleeping past 9 hours both sharply increase the risk of dying from heart disease. The optimal zone is the 7 to 9 hour valley in the middle. Sleep provides the biological foundation that makes the other behavioral inputs possible. If you remove it, the rest of the cardiovascular defense system begins to collapse. When sleep fails, it triggers an unavoidable cascade. A sleep deprivation node sends a signal downward. Hormones misfire, blood sugar spikes, and blood pressure rises. This internal stress loops back up, actively sabotaging your behavioral inputs and degrading your willpower to maintain diet and exercise. Understanding this interconnected biological system gives you a distinct advantage. We no longer must wait for a failing diagnosis and a prescription for a daily pill. Life's Essential 8 functions as a proactive, manageable lifestyle defense system. By maintaining these metrics, you can outsmart the world's deadliest disease before it takes hold. You have total control over the inputs, and the easiest first step to preventing heart disease tonight is simply cooling your room, turning off your screens, and going to sleep.